On December 17th, 1903, in the small beach town of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, two brothers named Wilbur and Orville Wright changed the world forever. They had invented the airplane, a heavier-than-air flying machine. For decades following, companies like Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, and Bombardier would develop better and larger airplanes. It has been 117 years since the Wright brothers first took flight, and airplanes are still an extremely common method of travel. Flightradar24, a Swedish flight tracking website, reports that at any given time there can be between 8,000 and 20,000 flights flying globally. So with all of these flights going around all of the time, where do they come from and, well, where are they supposed to go? The first commercial airport was the Hounslow Heath Aerodrome in London, England, which opened in August of 1919. It paved the way for a future of designated buildings entirely for planes to take off and land, which would eventually come to be known as airports. In 2012, the International Civil Aviation Organization, a UN agency, reported that they had registered over 40,000 airports. And of course, with all of those airports, there have to be large ones. In 2019, the busiest airport in the world was the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. That year, the airport received over 107 million passengers. With these statistics, you might briefly make the assumption that Atlanta is the most connected airport in the world. Well, obviously, it isn't. Sure, Atlanta might have a decent number of European destinations and even two African destinations, but the main reason Atlanta is the biggest airport mainly comes from domestic traffic. Atlanta is the main hub for America's second largest airline, Delta Airline. People coming on Delta Airlines from cities on the East Coast like Charlotte and Richmond connect through Atlanta to go elsewhere in the US, and vice versa. Not only that, but Atlanta is also a large city on its own. So if you want the airport with the most global influence, you'll have to look elsewhere. Obvious contenders could be New York City's John F. Kennedy Airport, which is home to more international flights than domestic flights and is also located in America's most populated city, or the London Heathrow Airport in England, Europe's busiest airport located in continental Europe's most populated city, or even the Dubai International Airport located in the United Arab Emirates, not only located in one of the Middle East's largest cities, but also the main airport of Emirates Airlines, the airline with the largest number of Airbus A380s. But what if I told you that none of these airports were actually the world's most connected airport? What if I told you that hiding in plain sight is the airport few would think to be, for lack of a better term, a gateway to the world? The Istanbul International Airport. Istanbul is the largest city in Turkey, a country that spans across both Europe and Asia. Istanbul is the only city in the world to be located on two continents, with the Bosphorus Strait dividing the two sides. Istanbul currently boasts a population measuring just under 15.52 million people, making it the fifth largest city in the world and the largest city in Europe if you count transcontinental countries as part of Europe. Similarly to all big cities, Istanbul has an airport. Well, actually, it has three airports. Istanbul is home to the Istanbul International Airport, the Istanbul Ataturk Airport, and the Sabiha Gökçen International Airport. The smallest of those is the Sabiha Gökçen Airport, named after the first female Turkish pilot, and was opened in 2001. As of now, the airport serves 123 destinations with 45 different airlines. However, this is about the Istanbul International Airport. The story of the airport starts with the story of the Istanbul Ataturk Airport, which was opened in 1912 as the Yelsilkoy Airport, a military airfield. In 1953, it was converted into a commercial passenger airport, and in the 1980s was renamed to the Istanbul Ataturk Airport after Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the first president of Turkey. Prior to April of 2019, Istanbul's Ataturk Airport served 286 destinations with 63 different airlines. However, on April 6, 2019, at 2:44 in the morning local time, a Turkish Airlines plane took off to Singapore, and no commercial planes ever took off again from the Istanbul Ataturk Airport. The reason for this was not bad, though. It was only because a new airport had opened some 39 kilometers or 21 miles away. This airport was simply called the Istanbul International Airport. While the new Istanbul Airport manages the city's huge amounts of passenger traffic, the pre-existing Ataturk Airport still exists and continues to manage all cargo flights, at least until the new airport develops their proper cargo facilities. So how does Istanbul compare to the rest of the world? Well, Istanbul has the third most destinations of any airport with its 286 destinations, behind Paris in France with 289, and Frankfurt in Germany with 309, and in 2018 was the 17th busiest airport in the world with approximately 68.2 million passengers, behind Seoul's Incheon Airport in South Korea and ahead of Jakarta in Indonesia. According to a 2018 article written by Business Traveler, Istanbul was ranked the 17th most internationally connected airport, ahead of Dubai and behind New York City. So clearly the rest of the world, as well as the statistics, seem to think that Istanbul is not the most connected airport in the world, but they fail to consider the variety of destinations that Istanbul serves. If you were to look at a list of Istanbul's destinations, you would hopefully notice three things. One thing is that there are a lot of Turkish destinations, some big Turkish cities like Ankara and some smaller ones like Gazapasha. The second thing is that there are a lot of large cities on there, mainly cities in the Eastern Hemisphere like London, Amsterdam, Paris, Dubai, Cairo, Johannesburg, New Delhi, Beijing, Tokyo, and Seoul. There are also some major and even smaller destinations in the Western Hemisphere, cities like Atlanta, Miami, Boston, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Havana, even Cancun. The third and final thing to notice is that there were a ton of destinations in unsafe places. In fact, 11 of the 15 most unsafe countries in the world in 2019 were served by Istanbul. The reason Istanbul is able to serve so many cities and dangerous countries is because, statistically, Turkey itself is a dangerous country. As you just saw, Turkey was on the list of unsafe countries that I just showed. Turkey has been plagued by internal and external military action, as well as terror attacks that have mostly stayed away from the airport with the exception of an attack on the airport in June of 2016. Large Western airports like London Heathrow and Paris Charles de Gaulle typically avoid these unsafe areas to an extent due to security reasons, but as Istanbul is already located in an unstable region, it is basically able to serve wherever it wants to in the region. Istanbul manages to serve small cities in politically unstable regions like rural Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, whose people wouldn't have had a one-stop connection to basically the entire world without it. In fact, without the existence of Istanbul's airport, millions of people across the world would have to spend thousands more dollars and several more hours trying to get out of their country. Istanbul might just seem like another big airport to connect large cities in Europe and Asia, and maybe some small domestic ones, but besides that, it also provides an outlet for millions of Africans, Asians, and Middle Easterns to see the world and do business without having to spend high amounts of money and time they may not have. This is what I think makes Istanbul Airport the world's most connected airport, or in other words, the gateway to the world.